It was a cold, quiet night. The moon hung low in the sky, casting faint shadows through the window of a small, dimly lit house. Inside, a young boy named Liam sat in his room, staring at the walls. He couldn't sleep. His heart raced, and an unsettling feeling gnawed at him. He had heard them again, his father and stepmother arguing. Their words pierced through the thin walls like knives. From the hallway, Liam heard his father's voice, colder than the night air. "I can't do this anymore. He's not my responsibility. He's nothing but a burden." Liam's heart sank. His stepmother's response was sharp, filled with anger. "Then do something about it. Get rid of him." Liam's blood ran cold. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. His father, the man who was supposed to love him, protect him, wanted him gone. Fear gripped Liam's chest as his world began to crumble around him. The house fell into an eerie silence. Moments later, the door to Liam's room creaked open. His father stood in the doorway, his face emotionless, eyes darkened by the weight of his decision. "Come with me," he said flatly, his voice void of warmth. Liam didn't ask where they were going. He didn't dare. His father's hand tightened around his arm as he led him out of the house and towards the car. The night was still, but the air felt suffocating. As they drove, Liam's thoughts raced. The tension was unbearable. He wanted to speak, to ask his father what was happening, but fear silenced him. Eventually, the car stopped at an old dock, the waves of the sea gently lapping against the shore. His father stepped out without a word and motioned for Liam to follow. They climbed into a small boat, the wood creaking beneath their weight. As the boat drifted away from the shore, Liam's unease grew. The sea was dark, vast, and cold. It mirrored the emptiness he felt inside. His father remained silent, staring blankly ahead, as if the boy beside him no longer existed. Liam's heart pounded in his chest. The silence was deafening, and every minute that passed felt like an eternity. And then his father spoke. "I should have never kept you. This was a mistake." The words hit Liam like a wave, knocking the breath from his lungs. He stared at his father, eyes wide with disbelief. The man he had once looked up to, the one he had trusted and loved, was abandoning him. Out here, in the middle of the sea. The sea stretched endlessly before them, cold and unforgiving. Liam sat frozen in the small boat, his father's words echoing in his mind. This was a mistake. His hands trembled, clutching the sides of the boat, as if holding on would somehow keep his world from shattering. The boat drifted farther from the shore. The faint lights of the dock were now a distant memory, swallowed by the night. Liam couldn't understand. Why was his father doing this? What had he done to deserve such cruelty? His father's face remained emotionless, staring out into the blackness of the sea. Liam wanted to cry out, to beg for an explanation, but his throat tightened with fear. The words stuck in his chest like heavy stones. The man who sat beside him no longer felt like his father. He was a stranger now, someone cold and unreachable. Liam's mind raced with thoughts of escape, but the vast, dark water surrounding them made it clear. There was nowhere to go. The boat swayed gently with the rhythm of the waves, a false calm that only heightened the storm brewing inside Liam's heart. He felt utterly abandoned, discarded like he meant nothing. The father he had once loved was now the source of his deepest fear. The betrayal was suffocating, each breath he took feeling heavier than the last. Suddenly, his father stood up, rocking the boat slightly. Liam's heart skipped a beat. He stared up at the man towering above him, waiting for what would come next. The wind howled softly, the only sound breaking the silence. "This is where it ends, Liam," his father said quietly, his voice distant, as if the decision had already been made in some dark corner of his mind. "You're not my responsibility anymore." Liam's eyes widened in horror. Was his father really going to leave him out here, alone? His mind screamed for him to do something, anything, but his body refused to move. Fear paralyzed him, rooting him to the boat as his world collapsed around him. In the dim moonlight, Liam could see the coldness in his father's eyes, a decision made. Without another word, his father began to pull the oars, turning the boat slightly. Liam's heart pounded in his ears. "He's leaving me." As the boat slowly turned, his father's gaze drifted to the shore, ignoring the terrified boy beside him. Liam's breath quickened, his chest tightening with panic. The sea felt endless now, the horizon disappearing into the darkness. Tears filled Liam's eyes as he watched his father prepare to row back, leaving him behind. How could he do this? The pain of betrayal ripped through Liam's chest, the weight of abandonment crushing him. The man he had once wanted to protect him was now the very source of his deepest nightmare. In that moment, something inside Liam shattered. The boy who had always hoped for his father's love was now faced with the harsh reality. He was truly alone. The boat rocked as Liam's father stood up once again, moving closer to the edge as if ready to cast something away. Liam's voice finally broke through the fear, trembling and weak. "Please, don't leave me." It was the only thing he could muster, a desperate plea for mercy. But his father didn't respond. He didn't even look at Liam. His heartless silence was louder than any words could ever be. The wind picked up, a cold gust that chilled Liam to the bone. He watched helplessly as his father prepared to push him away, leaving him in the vast sea, alone with his fears. The cold wind howled across the empty sea as Liam's father, without a word, began to turn the boat back towards the distant shore. Liam sat motionless, his entire body numb. His mind was a storm of confusion and pain, waves of fear crashing against him. He had begged, pleaded with his father not to leave him, but the only response he had received was cold silence. Liam's chest tightened and tears welled in his eyes. He watched his father slowly pull the oars, his back turned to him now, the man completely detached from the boy he had once called his son. It was as if Liam didn't exist anymore. As the boat drifted further into the open sea, Liam's heart raced, each beat reminding him of the hopelessness of his situation. His father had made up his mind. There would be no going back. And now Liam was truly alone, surrounded by the vast, endless ocean that seemed ready to swallow him whole. The waves grew stronger, the boat swaying with the rhythm of the night. The cold air cut through Liam's thin clothes, and he shivered, feeling the bite of the sea on his skin. He wanted to scream, to fight, but what was the point? The person he needed most had already turned his back on him. Suddenly, the boat lurched violently to the side, knocked by a large wave. Liam's small hands gripped the edge, panic surging through him. The boat rocked harder, the sea becoming more and more turbulent. His father barely reacted, focused on his rowing, his face still emotionless. And then, it happened. The wave that would change everything. A massive surge of water slammed into the boat, tilting it dangerously to one side. Liam's grip loosened, and before he could react, the boat tipped further, throwing him overboard into the freezing water. The icy sea enveloped him, stealing his breath away. Panic surged through Liam's body as he struggled to stay afloat, his limbs numb from the cold. The water was heavy, pulling him down as the darkness of the night seemed to close in around him. He gasped for air, flailing in the water, trying to call out for his father, but his voice was drowned by the relentless waves. His father remained in the boat, his silhouette barely visible in the darkness, and yet he made no move to save his son. He watched, cold and unmoved, as Liam fought against the merciless sea. Liam's strength began to fade, his limbs grew heavy, and the weight of exhaustion dragged him down. Was this it? Was this how it was going to end? Abandoned in the sea, left to drown by the very man who was supposed to love him. In those final moments, as the cold water wrapped around him, a strange calm settled over Liam. He had done all he could. He had fought for his father's love, for his life. But the sea, like his father, was unforgiving. Just as he began to slip beneath the surface, something happened. A light, a faint glimmer in the distance. And then the sound of a motor cutting through the night. A boat. Liam's vision blurred, his body exhausted, but hope sparked in his heart. Someone was coming. Someone had seen him. As he felt himself sinking, strong arms suddenly pulled him up, lifting him from the freezing depths. He wasn't alone anymore. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to Stories of Hope for more inspiring stories.